recording and process. So a very warm welcome to the October online reading and launch of Thin Places and Sacred Spaces, an anthology of new poetry published by Amethyst Press. And I'm delighted to have edited it, and I'm equally delighted to be here with everybody. We're going to have readings. We're going to go through the sections as far as we can do that. I'm really looking forward to hearing people read. I'm going to call on a small number of early readers, first of all, and then I'm going to call on groups of names as we go through the relevant sections, and hopefully we can fit things in a reasonably successful manner. So for early readers, I've got Helen Evans, Lena Heckman Ayers, I apologise if I'm not saying your name right, Lynn Wetchley and Saraswati. So I don't know who would like to go first. Saraswati, would you like to go first? So I've got you up on my screen here, Saraswati Nadkov.
Sure, I'd
So
love
your
to.
poem, your lovely poem, is in the sacred architecture section, which is nice to have a poem representing that section. So over to you.
Thank you, and thank you for this beautiful anthology that reads like a collection of prayers. Um, I've really loved going through it and savoring the poems. So I'm going to go straight to mine, and my apologies if I'm not able to actually stick around for everyone else's poems. It's quite late here in India. It's almost midnight. So I won't last very long online. This poem was actually a memory of a visit in 1986 to a 6th century Vishnu temple in southern India. And according to myth, the ancient deity of the place, Tirupati, whose name is Venkateshwara, he made the 7 hills of Seshachalam his sacred abode 5,000 years ago. This was first published in a Propolis journal and now a part of the beautiful Thin Places and Sacred Spaces. Temple of the 7 Hills. Barefoot, a chain of beating hearts, ancient masons tapping stone, squashed by faith and masses and bars that herd us round and round the crawl to sanctum, a great lock unwinding. Daddy says, look. Carved eagles quiver, blink alive, intone stories I've read like oracles gazing backwards. From snake-white wicks rise flames, wearing sapphire hearts. Sculptures stare with canny eyes through thin veils of granite. Everything breathes and remains breathless in this fecund threshold. Stone arches span a new sky. The blue god is a shining moon, familiar and wondrous. In long seconds, I leap constellations, a star-born gazelle. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lynn. Saraswati. Thank you. Did you get your book yet, by the way? No,
Not
it is on
yet.
its way. It's on its way.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Helen Evans, would you like to read your poem?
I certainly will. And as one of the early readers, thank you so much, Sarah, for what is a beautiful anthology. Much appreciated. This poem is called Witness and is inspired very loosely indeed, by the dream of the Rood. I allow this stranger to tie the blindfold around my head and trust her to lead me across the woodland floor, icy leaves, fallen branches, ruts of frozen mud, to the tree she chooses. I rest my head against it, sense its embrace, embrace it, and my hands find something unexpected. Hard-edged hollows filled with moss, wounds. And although I'm staring into darkness, I see the long taproot of that wounded tree pass all the way down through the earth's crust and mantle to its core, and the branches reach up like the vault of a medieval nave to bear the whole arch of the sky. Thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Helen. Lynn, would you like to read one of your lovely poems?
Thank you. Oh, I'm very moved by this event, and thank you, Sarah, for creating something of rare beauty in an age with increasing reductionism. It's very brave. I was born on the edge of the fens, and I have a poem, a lullaby remembered. When I was growing up, the fens were a lonely place, a good place to sort of contact.
Can't hear her.
You can't hear. You can't hear.
I can hear you, Lynn. Perhaps turn up the volume.
Yeah.
Listeners, and maybe Lynn as well.
Right. Take two. I was born on the edge of the fens, and it's quite a lonely place. Nowadays, it's full of busy roads and freight and agribons and things, but it still has these beautiful reeds that line the dikes. They're sort of feathery, a bit like angels' wings, and they sigh in the wind. A lullaby remembered. Fey reeds of the fens, I hear you. Through static crackle glaze, I hear you. The lullaby you make of the wind, litany of winter, how your summered purple wanes to white gold sibilance, that limbs and lines the drains and spirit loads. Peat fields, their raven folds, leavened with lit beauty, as if a presence roams here, heaven-fledged, its scapulars of spun platinum, molting wonder. And how equerry to ditches, escort to inverted moons, you make a living song of the light, and how, despite all herbicides, hurtling roads, you persist, and how, faith keeper, your frail threads reel in my childhood, a crab apple house left dangling too long off the rim of the hastening world. Thank you, Sarah.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. And Lana, do we have?
Hi. Thank you so much, Sarah, for this beautiful anthology. And thanks to all the poets in it. The work is just so incredibly beautiful and powerful, and it's an honor. Thank you. My poem is called Second Light. Last night, after I turned on one lamp too many, the breaker tripped and all the lights extinguished. I noticed that even in the dark, I could see the shapes of things. Outline of the door frame, straight edge of the upper cabinet, curve of the countertop, person-like outline of my desk chair. It was as if in the dark there was a second light, a brightness within shadow that goes unnoticed. So preoccupied are we with harsh illumination We forget the world is not all duality, not all good and bad, not all right and wrong, not this or that, but shades of meaning and profundity. I walked to my chair, not tripping over the edge of the rug, not bumping into the protruding washer dryer, and sat in my seat, breathing in the dark, my heart a soft metronome. I could make out the messy scatter of white pages on the surface of the desk, piles of books, the nested rectangles of my laptop and its stand, its screen darker than the air in the room. And though I knew I couldn't read any of the pages, I moved my palm over the surface of printouts that emitted a kind of glow, felt their smoothness, their coolness, knowing words were the darker shade of light. Sitting with the mystery of that, I took the top poetry book off the stack, felt its weight in my hand, wondering if it was the Fargnoli or the Mikado, and understood that words on paper all weigh the same, no matter what meaning they impart. We make such significance out of opposites, pass laws, impugn one another. But between hope and despair, there is more light in the darkness than we ever knew, a deeper seeing, a way to breathe from the soul all the way into the eyes. Thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. I love your TARDIS sweater. Another type of thin space. Wonderful. Thank you. I'm going to transport us forward now to Sacred Times and Holy Hours, which is towards the middle of the book. And in my mind, I really wanted this to be a sort of accent note in this reading, as we're getting towards the end of October, and we've got all these dates and celebrations that seem to point towards a sort of thin veil between our world and a sense of the other, and a sense of the greater and the sacred, and so on. But Halloween, All Saints, All Souls, winter solstice, and so on. So not necessarily that those feature in these poems, but I wanted them in that section, and I wanted that section to be here. So I've got 4 readers listed in my notebook, although there might be others here. But if I could invite Diana Durham, Anne Ryland, Paul Jaskunas, and Laura Webb to read, if you are all here and happy to do so. And if I could invite Diana Durham to read first, that would be wonderful, if you're here.
Yep, I'm here.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you, Sarah. Lovely to sort of meet you all as little pixels from around the world, I think. I love this idea of, this is a sonnet, it's very short, called Thin Places. And when I first came across that idea, that Celtic idea, I found it, obviously, as we all have, very, it makes you think about a whole load of things all at once. And, but most particularly for me, those places, or however we experience them, they model back to us something about our own identity and our connection, the thinning of the personality self, if you like, and the inner self, which is why we will remain free despite the world's attempt to censor us, right? Okay, Thin Places. Each morning, what is familiar is seen again. As we awaken out of night and our part of earth spins round into light, that day shift still traveling while they dream. Continents, neighborhoods striped in darkness and sunlight, oceans tilted warm, then cold. It is this interchange that grows the world, makes the soft grey overlap that stretches out the dusk, the mist that blurs the morning land. Thin places, the Celts said, where the deep bleeds through and shifts the hardened shapes of things, a clearing like the night that mimics sleep. This is the world riddle that we answer when we see one depth within the other.
Thank you so much. Wonderful. Anne Ryland.
Hello. Hi. Hello, everyone. Hi. I'm delighted to appear in this really beautiful and nourishing anthology. So many thanks to you, Sarah, very much for your huge commitment in bringing this to fruition. It's wonderful. Just a short introduction. I live on the coast on the England-Scotland border, and I started running late in life about 7 years ago. And my favourite run is a solo Sunday run, and I'm running towards and into what I see as my sacred space, you might say. I had to wait for a way into this poem. That happens sometimes, doesn't it? And it transpired to be just one word, a word that my brother gave me really and taught me. And this word is the title of the poem. And the poem is on page 146, if you want to read along. Apricity. I run out into the dawn, into April's 1 degree Celsius, carrying the comfort of a rare word my brother has sent me. Sun, warming us through a cruel chill. I rasp across the old bridge, its gentle arch. A stranger cheers, "You're winning, lass." Breath simple as laughter, breath a labyrinth. Past the harbour, loose to the lifeboat ramp. The grey seal snorts at me, a woman with 59 winters running off down to the dunes. Low tide, packed sand, softer landings, running along water's edge for the clearing, forgiving clearing of waves. Running as resistance to waiting, running to strengthen the core when the world is wobbling. Running towards pink sandstone, quarried to build our town, for the shore's end, where nothing and everything is known. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. Paul, if you're here.
Hello, thank you.
Hello.
Yeah, can you hear me now? Is this good?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good. I'm honored to be here. Such wonderful poems. Thank you, Sarah. My poem is called Seeds. It was something my son told me one day while we were walking in the woods near my house, not far from Washington, D.C., in Rock Creek Park. I don't know if this fact about squirrels is true. I never looked it up, but it worked its way into this poem. Seed time. Walking through the woods one evening, my son recalled that squirrels are known to lose the many nuts they hide, morsels stashed away to stave off winter hunger, forgotten in the frantic search for more. Come spring, the squirrels' lost sprout new sap that promise a plenitude for a future to gather and lose. And on their scattiness seeds the woods, providing for their progeny. I would like to know if all that I've let go, so many dreams and days forsaken, has likewise sunk into a fertile patch of earth, germinating there the stocky substance of unknown abundance to come. Maybe this is wishful thinking, yet standing at my side, my son gazed on the tips My sun gaze on the tips of trees turn pink with sun. Sketchbook in hand, he sat down to draw what was left of the evening light.
Wonderful, thank you. Thank you. That's a good example of a poem that could have fitted into a number of sections, actually. But very nice to hear it there. Okay, and Laura Webb, if you're there.
Yes, I wondered if, I mean, I think mine is called Half Moon Over the Hospital, and I think it could have gone in the thin veil between life and death as well, but I quite like where you put it, Sarah. I'm going to show the shape on the page just because it is supposed to be vaguely moon-shaped, and Sarah was so patient with me when she put it in the correct font for the anthology, and it wasn't as moon-shaped as it had been when I submitted it. And she was very patient with making some slight changes, so thank you, Sarah. Half moon over the hospital. My half moon, my cathedral dome, my grin of a Cheshire cat, my slice of lemon in the gym, my D for don't ever look back, my shining penny pressed into the arcade slot, ready to drop beyond the star-pinned sky, my tunnel to tomorrow through the hillside of the night. Thank you.
That's just perfect. Thank you so much. Great. Thea, you popped a note in the chat, and it'd be lovely to have you read your poem, which is also from this section. Thea Ayres.
Thank you. I'm sorry if I'm a bit hoarse or sniffly. I have a bit of a cold. My poem is called In the Dojo. In the dojo, we meditate with our eyes half open, facing the wall, not looking at anything, but seeing everything, the teacher says. It's my first time here. Behind me, the others are lighting incense, ringing a prayer ball, padding softly barefoot, shuffling in their robes as they walk or bow. I could be a baby, hearing adults talking somewhere I can't see them, unable to turn myself around and not yet wanting to, content for now to see whatever comes of its own accord into the space in front of me. Then it starts raining outside the dojo. The light changes on the wall, and the sounds of footsteps and traffic get big and splashy. I turn my head just a bit to see the window. I remember being in my buggy, watching the tadpoles trickling down the fogged up plastic. At some point in the meditation, I think I fall asleep. It's half a memory, like the shape in the doorway that could have been my mother or the tooth fairy. Outside, a cat brushes against my leg, meowing noisily. I gulp the air like a whale swallowing krill. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks so much. Yeah, really good example of a different way of looking at time as a sacred quantity, so time that's set aside to be filled with wonder and meditation like that. Okay, so we're just over halfway through the allocated hour. As I said, we may run over for those able to stay, but we're now crossing over into the section that I call the thin veil between life and death, which I found it such a moving selection of poems. I mean, I loved all the poems, obviously, but I really found these poems very moving and also very very heartening in a way, because anyone who's had experience of loss and who hasn't, there's something common there that is difficult, very difficult to express, and yet these poems are all reaching towards that, and I found it all very moving and kind of comforting as well. So on my list, I've got poems by Sivia Gover and Sister Joanna Caton, Frank Desiderio, and Molly Lind. So shall we have our 4 readers and then see if there's anyone else? So Sivia, would you like to start us?
Absolutely. Thank you so much again for everybody for making this happen, and especially for you, Sarah, for all the beautiful work you've put into it. My poem is called If This Was the Gateway to Heaven, and it's on page 172. Oh. And it plays on both the biblical story of Jacob's ladder, where the angels were going up and down Jacob's dream of the heavenly ladder, and also sitting at my mother's bedside in a facility for people with Alzheimer's while she was making her transition. So if this was the gateway to heaven. If this was the gateway to heaven, then her bed was a ladder laid down on its back. That pillow, the stone where she settled her head, and she was the traveler weary. And if so, this room on the stark, sterile hallway, guarded with a lock on the door and the nurses of doom, was a crater filling with light as her breath emptied out, and the whole damn room, you could say, was dreaming, those angels all a feather, pulling and lifting in the fluorescent lit heaven. Up and down, and usher her out, as I sat on the lip of the bed, letting her go through the ceiling, the roof, past the half-smiling moon. When we rolled her in mere weeks before, all out of hope, this ward was a well-disguised hell. But God, I now knew, was in this place all along, and I did not know.
That's just beautiful. Thank you so much. Yeah, and Sister Joanna, would you like to read your lovely poem?
Thank you very much. And I'm loving hearing all of these poems read aloud. It adds a whole new dimension. Thank you. So my poem is called The Color of Bread. She was never known to wear matched socks. She unhitched conduct from call with glee and paired liberty with liability like a white water rafter. Old now and dying, she was at last a model of childlike trust, this unusual Benedictine nun. We prayed at her bedside, waiting for the coming and the going. Her body was wafer thin, the color of bread. She whispered thanks for the tiny wet sponge on a stick we gave her to suck, the wipe of water on dry lips. Her room was filled with presents. It hovered in the sunlight, fluttering on her soft quilt, quivering through the trees at the window, shadow and light like harp strings, vibrating to the remembered melody that was her life, notes suffering the unknown air like restless hands that yearned to play the music of her silent release. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sister Joanna. It's a beautiful poem. Frank Desiderio, may I call on you?
Yes, thanks very much. Thank you for creating the space for spiritual poetry. It's nice to be among my tribe. I'm reading from New York City, and the poem is on page 170. It's entitled In the Next Room. The door is slightly ajar. I'm in an overstuffed chair. There's good light, and I'm praying and listening in to the people I love, not wanting to interfere with their morning unfolding and wanting only the best for them. Perhaps this is what the afterlife is like.
Thank you so much. Yes, what a striking poem. Yeah, and Molly, are you here to read your also very striking
Yes,
poem?
I am. Thank you, and
you.
it's such a privilege to be here with you all. I love your work. It's a wonderful volume. And this poem, Dream Number 3, is on page 175. And I think it could have also gone into the wholly unexpected, but I like where it's placed. Dream Number 3. Lying here in this coma, my hair has grown to an extraordinary length and billows out over my body like a red carpet for a dignitary. I always wanted red hair. Every day they bring me food that I magically save for the man with the sweet voice who comes to read the newspaper aloud to me at precisely 9:45 a.m. But that may be a flashback from an old movie. I am silent as a stone, shrunk deep inside my knowing and unknowing walnut shell. Jesus visits, disguised as the night custodian, whistles while he mops. We all breathe again. The corridor walls expand and fall away. Beeping machines quiet down and melt into the soft, weightless slumber of the stars. Wide, wide over our heads, 3 ceilings up. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, it's such a striking, dreamlike poem that, yeah, stays in the memory. Thank you. Okay, any other readers from that section who I haven't called upon?
Valerie, I think. Yes, Valerie, and myself, or she put her hand up, but.
Okay, yes. Nancy, then absolutely, please do read. Thank you.
Okay, I'm on page 171 right after Frank. So if you go back to Frank's old. My mother's house has many closets, deep and dark wombs of rebellion tamed into boxes, clothes gray-scaled to elegance, where diamond-pointed brooches prick blue into muted shades of manners. Once I pushed past the false back into boreal forest, found my mother huddled, too tired to return, and I carried her in my arms deeper into the greening, where her young limbs scrabbled free over shale, and memory's fingers plucked wild blueberries from the sharp shins of dried moss and lichen, where alone was never lonely, and she sang and rose into the auroras, all flux and float and iridescent waves of collision, charged particles, finally, faithfully released. Thanks.
Yes, just lovely. Thank you so much. Thank you. So you mentioned Valerie, but which Valerie are we? We've got Valerie.
I think I put my hand up, but I've the wrong section. So I'm in the last.
Yes, you're in Thin Places in Art, Poetry, and Language. You're on my list. Coming up. So, okay. Unless there's anyone else from that section, I will then invite readers from the subsequent section, which I entitled The Wholly Unexpected. I said one of those titles, I just wrote it and don't know where it came from, but I decided to leave it there. So I've got on my list Jean Bagan Denita and Catherine C. Kennedy, Maura Harrison, Laura Garfinkel, Jenna Weissong-Filbren and Sandra Feast. I don't know if you're all here, but I will call on you in that order and we will see how we go. It was quite a delight to put this section together, really. So Jean, I think I saw your name pop up on the in the waiting room. Jean Vigan, if you're here and would like to read.
Certainly. Greetings from warm California. It's a comfortable 11:45 in the morning here. This is called Homeward. I had submitted it to Presence, a journal for spiritual direction, and the poetry editor killed my darlings. But that happens, and she made it much better without my darling little ego phrases in it. Homeward. It happens sometimes in films. You swallow a gust of heaven and know a sudden fullness in chest and belly, a leaning of the heart toward its elementary place, a surprising remembrance of the springy lift of being, of love. All you've known then folds to a vast, soft peace, reclaimed from prehistory, from a cosmic wave, a huge belonging laugh. Help me to hold on for all time. You beg of that moment. It is dear, this bodily visitation, this unexplained filling.
Thank you so much. Yeah. And we're lucky to have it in the anthology then, if it's been through the editorial ringer, wonderful as it is. And Denny, are you here and able to read?
I am here, but I keep losing connection.
Yeah.
So if I disappear, you will know why. I'm very sorry. And I just want to say thank you so much for all the work you put into this. I think the whole volume has got such a lot of interest in it, and it's like a meditation for the whole year reading through it. You could take so much time over so many of the poems. So thank you so much. My poem is called Alternatively. Alternatively, then again, it's not just the way those fingers of sunlight point deep into the hills, not just that high flight mewing of gulls, nor the chatter from 3 magpies disturbed by an approach, nor is it each sudden cerise of clover by the path, bright yellow carpet spread of buttercups across the grass, sweet coconut of gorse that fills the air, or how our chests still rise and fall with every hungry breath. Know this. Chasing lights. We're always chasing lights, afraid to sit in quiet dark, allow a pause for merely thought. Not merely, though. How can we fail to know our need for time to hold us gently close and let us be? Just be. Our bodies neat and still in space, and then for all we store inside to gather, spill, and pattern, rearrange, become our fragile now before it slips away.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you very much indeed. And your internet connection held out throughout. Catherine, I've got Catherine C. Kennedy. Are you here and prepared to read?
I am, and I hope my internet connection holds out. It's not entirely reliable. First, Sarah, I just want to say thank you so much for all the love and energy that you poured into this book and for the opportunity to be part of it, which is just a real honor. Thank you so much. I like to write poems that explore the spiritual dimension of awe, the AWE awe, in science and quantum physics, basically the existence of spirit in matter. And my poem is at page 207, and it's called The World in Strangeness. The absence of reflected light renders a body invisible. It disappears by moonless midnight, a silent, insentient being waiting to be revealed again at the boundary of dark and bright. As the earth rotates eastward, the entire visible spectrum comes alive, a rainbow of hues within the colorless rays, touching each object below, and each thing, after consulting with the eye, deciding which tint to wear. But the real colors of the world are disguised. What is seen when light glances off a thing is the opposite of the color it absorbs. The greenery of the woods, hemlock, moss, salal, huckleberry, is a trick on the wandering wayfarer. Being the wavelength they reflect, the truth is that foliage finds red light most useful in its chlorophyll factories, not its green cousin perched directly across the color wheel. What would it be like for the unbiased eye to see red splashed across the garden under an orange sky? For blue is the scattering of the airy domes, for blue is the result of the airy dome scattering of light, not the actual raiment of the sky. A sun glowing orange casts blue shadows on earth. What you think you don't know, and that goes for time. A Swiss patent clerk, imagining a streetcar racing away from a medieval clock tower at the speed of light, realized the illusion of time, that it would stop for the streetcar passenger holding on to a strap for dear life. The clock does not move to a metronome beat. Its hands move faster on mountaintops than at the seaside, more briskly at your head than at your feet. Even more strangely, according to the calculations, time can flow forward or backwards, the future a precursor to the past, another shot at what you thought was dead and buried. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Great. Maura Harrison, are you here and happy to read? Okay. Laura Garfinkel, are you here?
I'm here.
Wonderful.
It's really special to be part of this global reading. And also, Sarah, thank you for all the communication, which was part of the care you put into this beautiful book. Mine is 198, and it's called Zen Stones in Snow Globe. Balanced stack sprinkled with fairy dust, glitter iridescent against the sheen of wet rocks, makes them shimmer like mermaid tails. A fortune teller looking into this crystal ball sees trail marker. Landmark could be anywhere, Scottish cairns or next to Buddhist temple. Stones create signposts to say, this is the way. Someone visited this place before you. Like leaving pebbles on a headstone carefully placed, not the heap that buried Hermes. Tilt the orb, view obscures as water clouds. Could be our minds scattered, confused every time we are shaken awake. Nothing lasts, we think, losing sight and hope. But dust settles, revealing rocks still in place. We are inside the globe looking out, a single flake of snow, floating and falling until we find a solid place to land.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah. Jenna Filbren, are you happy to read?
Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you to Sarah and to all of you. It's so wonderful to hear your voices and read your words at the same time. I'll be reading A Geode in a Dream on page 195. A Geode in a Dream. The rough crust of worn dust that is the safety of my skin cracks open. Inside, a secret sea of purple, a crystallized cloud of violets, like breath took form and shattered the morning air. This is where I have kept the love that now reaches in streaks of light outward. I keep nothing. I lose nothing. It is like remembering, this dream of hidden purple light like flame, reaching toward a whole host of other shining flames.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. The last name I've got written down for this section is Sandra Fees. I know you've got another poem in the nature section. I wondered if you would be happy to read your Imago, I think your poem. And after that, I'm so sorry that we are again running out of time, but if Sandra would like to read her poem, I'll then do a sort of triage and ask if people would like to read and have to go, and I'll do the best I can to fit people in, and then I'll offer some further plans. But Sandra, let's hear your poem first.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Sarah. I'm really honored to be included in the collection, and I'm just really thrilled to get to see everyone here and hear the work read. This piece of mine was inspired by the Webb telescope images. I think so many of us were and are just amazed by. Imago. Burgeoning cliffs and moonlit mountains skirt the jagged edge of our grasping. The fish and the gods and the stars gasp, and I too am bedazzled. Who are we to decide where the world comes from, where it goes? Or is this our primal urge, our need to know? Just for a while, let's hover in the I am of these craggy limits. Let's brush our earthen heels with cosmic dust and unhand the sculpted isness of this universe. What if we are, all of us, flint of the ineffable? What if we could see in ourselves the glittery quintessence of who we really are? Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. Yes, very fond of that poem with its sort of cosmic reflections. Okay, now I'm very conscious that we're getting to over time. I've got two thoughts to help us, possibly. The first thought is I'm very happy to hold another reading of people who haven't yet had the chance to read and who want to go. And in fact, there may be others who just want to come and listen. Looking at my diary, Tuesday, December the 10th at about the same time works for me, although it may not work for you because I know December is one of those months that is possibly a bit unpredictable. So that's just a thought, and I can get in touch with people to see if that might be a way to progress if people haven't yet read and now have to go. I'm so sorry if that's the case, but I'm happy to kind of find a way around that, and if we have to wait until the new year, then that's okay too. That's fine with me. Having said that, I have got it would be lovely to hear our readers from Art, Poetry and Language, but are there any readers who really were wanting to read? Felt tonight was the night.
Would I be able to read tonight, please?
Now
Yeah,
I was
can stay
yeah, now is
a
the
little bit
chance to jump
longer.
in.
Do you know what?
Yes.
I'll put on my camera and then you can see me.
Even better.
Hello. Yeah, I'll be able to
And
stay a little
Melissa,
bit longer.
sorry,
but I
yes,
might
and Melissa, I see your hand is raised too, so I'll come to you straight away afterwards. Yeah, thank you, Charlotte.
Okay, so yeah, thank you for this wonderful anthology. I'm just reading through it at the moment and enjoying everyone's poems. So my poem is on page 16, and it's called On Chalice Hill, Glastonbury. I am a sea creature washed inland by the pull of the moon, arms heavy and useless, gasping at each step on slippery tufts of grass. My boots are swollen with the sky's tears, the long road of my nose dripping. Brow creased into a lightning flash, dark thunder building. His hoodie wrapped around me like armor, defending the image of who I thought he was. The tent grows smaller, as if I'm squinting through the wrong end of a telescope, vision shadowed by exhaustion. It pitches like a trawler on a canvas sea, his chosen one clinging to him while they drown in waves of music, if only. His Devon bear follows me on the wind as I stumble uphill, a pilgrim displaced from faith. I crumple at the peak like old paper. Heaven's ground catches me in its unblinking gaze. Raindrops glimmer bright as lime in the crack of light over the weather-scarred finger of the Tor, twin summits enduring when all else is swamped. No wonder this place was thought sacred. Up here, it's easy to believe you are saved. Thank you.
Yeah, I love that. Love that last line, especially. Thank you. I'm going to be quick. I see names have popped up. I've made a note of the name. So Melissa, I caught you, and then I'll go to Jill, and I can see other hands are raised as well. So let's do what we can. And as I said, Paul needs to go. No problem. If you need to go, no problem. No offense taken. Thank you for coming. And if it comes to it, I'll arrange another session. So let's do what we can now. So Jill, would you like to? Sorry, it was Melissa. Melissa first, and then Jill. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks very much. Thank you, Sarah, for everything, and thanks to all of you for your lovely poems. This poem, it's on page 82, and it is in response to a real place in Chicago, but it never fails to transport me to another time and place. Fern Room, Lincoln Park Conservatory. 1. Pungent odors of root-rich soil permeate still air. A warm dampness seeps through dense vegetation. Water slips over rocks, a soothing murmur. Cushioned moss creeps through cavities etched in sunken stone. Feathered fractal leaves of miniature ferns reach out, stroke the skin. High overhead, colossal cycads, their massive fronds like shields, stand guard. Shafts of light pierce through mottled glass panes. Countless shades of green, chartreuse, emerald, jade, flicker. Beneath all movement, an ancient energy pulses. 2. Fiddlehead coils stretch, unfurl their limbs like dancers awakening. Tendrils of Spanish moss, strands of tangled iridescent hair tickle the cheek that brushes against them. Indeterminate sounds emerge, hollow, random. The low hum of primeval souls as they pass through thick shadows. Surrounded by living walls, cradled by a moving canopy, boundaries between plants and limbs, earth and flesh, air and blood become tenuous. An energy pulses lower than the threshold of sound. 3. Humid air descends, enters, saturates each cell, the skin a glistening membrane. The whisper of one's heartbeat slows with the breath. Lulled into stillness, Feet sink into cool earth. Eager vines circle, commence their ascent, wrap each ankle and calf, inch upward to embrace the thighs, caress the belly. A velvet moss spreads into secret places, the body enveloped. And deep within one's core, the pull of the earth pulses. Thank you.
Lovely poem. I'm feeling slightly anxious and it's calmed me right down again. Thank you. Thank you very much. Jill, you had your hand up and you messaged me as well.
Thank you so much. Hearing all these poems, I so look forward to receiving my my volume, and thank you very much, Sarah, so many times. My poem is on page 95. It's called Alive. The sharper the morning, the more dazzling the sun. Its elbows make it so. Etched away with a ray wing, a vacated field. The grass green, mud teeming with the hue of metals and wings of broken insects. The sting and all that piercing, nothing to cling to. The air alive with the smell of nettles, hollows, pits, flow, and possibility. We cannot charm our way out of this mess. Let the mask fall. Only our expansiveness, the many rooms of our heart, have a steely, eternal quality. Be full with your green armor, internal, proud. The shadows, its, mine, leave holes for wild ecstasies. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much indeed. Now I'm in a quandary. Tim Dwyer, you said you'd like to read this evening. Would you like to some others that I know people have raised their hands. I'm doing the absolute best I can now, but it'd be lovely to hear a poem from the art, poetry and language section. And I know, Valerie, you've been waiting. I am looking at other names too. Valerie, would you be able to read?
So, yeah, hi. Thank you, Sarah. It's so great to be included in this anthology because everybody's reaching towards that very fragile and slight thing, the sacred. And it's what I've always been interested in. So I'm very sort of thrilled to be here. And this poem called What Is This? I wrote when somebody was talking about the manna that the ancient Israelites ate in the desert when they had no food. And it was apparently a thin, fragile layer of something they couldn't identify. And so manna translates as what is this, apparently. So my poem is called What Is This? What is this? It had not crossed my mind that I would find my poem under a rose bush, or indeed that I would need to go out into the night, spade in hand to loosen soil and sand in order to extricate it. Had there been a moon that night, I would not have needed to play the fox and invoke nocturnal sight to find my way in the invisible garden. But once I was there, I knew instinctively which bush it would be, the apothecary with petals full of healing. I waited in the soft dark and listened. And quiet as it was then, even at 4 a.m., I noted that the bees were abuzz, gathering pollen from its blooms. A bird too was singing, although I could not name the song. Like the singer, I got lost in the melody and the drone of the night shift honeymakers. As I stood barefoot in the dew, I knew that I had to dig around the thorny branches to find the roots of my longing. Dawn was coming, and though my hands got scratched and bled, that bleeding led to an anguish that was nectar on my tongue, and yet it stung and left me aching for someone, for anyone, to receive the poem I could give. So I took what I could and ran faster than a fox out into the night, only to find myself pinned by dawn's light, forgetting every line I'd foraged. Yet the taste and the ache stayed with me. I offer no explanation, but only a title. What is this?
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you. Now, I wonder if I could, I'm trying to work through people who would really like to read. Well, I'm sure you all would really like to read, and I'd love to hear you. I wonder if I could line up Laurie Hess and Ali Rowland and Laura Rees Hogan and Barbara Usher, if you're still there. Let's see how that goes. Shall we try that? Now, who did I say first? Laurie Hess, if you're happy to read.
Thank you. Thank you so much. My poem is called In a Garden. And I'm not a gardener, but this is an experience I had when I was working in the garden of my son's school, Parent Volunteer Day. In a garden. You cut just where the new growth starts, an angled slice that strips away the old and dry, the useless, withered fruit. Your task, you've been told, is to clip these roses in Lent, as it happens, a penitent time. Time to consider how death crosses life. Sometimes it's hard to recognize the tender leaf buds, barely knobs. Cut carefully, don't go too far. Later leaves look dipped in blood, with crimson backsides, purpled stems. Palm green is rimmed with shocking red, for Passiontide, as we look toward the loss of love. How hard it is for us to lose our old growth. How we cling to our wintry fruit and fail to see what looks so strange, so unlike what we thought spring ought to be. In a garden, he prayed and sweated blood. In a garden, he rose unrecognized. The kingdom will come like leaves, he said. But they went too far and could not wait for buds to open. They kept the old fruit and stripped the rose. Even his friends lost faith and fled. They couldn't see growth, our growing point so close to death, where leaf and thorn cling to one branch. Let us know what he showed in his strange way, and with clear eyes perceive how leaves unfurl with tender force, pure power. Let us cut just what is already dead, the withered husk of self, and wait for roses to open, frail as blood. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Ali Rowland.
Hello. Hi. Thank you to Sarah for choosing my poem for the anthology. I'm on page 67, Underwater Forest. I've moved to the coast, which is my own sacred space, for healing purposes, and this poem is about my experience of the very magical and often very cold waters of the North Sea. Underwater forest. Among the submerged trees we would swim. How good to dart and flick about their leaves. Their roots, though deep in sand, still hold the possibility of movement, a chance to readjust. Each branch would be wet but firm, the wood seasoning itself with salt, richening to a deeper resonance. Yes, this forest would make its noise against the water, against the wind felt underneath the surface as breath, and in the movement of tiny grains and bubbles. No one would climb these trees. We would be fish, crustaceans, shells, flowing, floating, knowing nothing but this, nothing but ease. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. And Belle.
Hi. My poem's called, well, first I'd like to say that the hero of my poem, I believe, is here listening. And I'm sending him the book. And it's called Pantoum of Daybreak Over the Labyrinth on the Footpath to Burgos. 4 figures wheel on the purple hilltop. Why walk in circles when the road's so long? Sven is watching. It's a labyrinth. Lay down your backpack. Go on in. Why walk in circles when the road's so long? It was still dark when I left the village. Lay down your burden. Go on in. I'd crept out shoeless, like a runaway. It was still dark when I left the village. Paused to drink water, breathe the sharp air. I'd crept out like a runaway child. First light, horizons open, indigo. Pause, drink, breathe in the sharp air. They're following a spiral marked in stones. Day breaking, horizons open, blue. Why? You go in with a question. They're following a spiral marked in stones. They walk tall, weightless, those people. I'll try. What kind of question? Any question, big or small. They walk tall, weightless, the seekers. I find the opening, enter the spiral, without a question, big or small. As I walk, the question comes like a gift. I found the opening, I'm in the spiral. The landscape brightens, turquoise below. A boy runs past me, mocking, loud. I tread the grass between the stones. Suddenly, he's on the ground. A boy ran past, mocking, loud. The labyrinth has tripped him. Now he's winded on the ground. I hold on to my question. The labyrinth has tripped him. He's young, too rude, needs to learn. I hold on to my question. Slow, diminishing circles. He's young, rash, needs to learn. I'm held safe in the labyrinth, slow, diminishing circles. Towards the center, the answer. I'm held by the labyrinth beneath this rose-pink dawn. At the center, the answer. Spiral out, cradling my answer. Beneath the crimson dawn, the day stretches clear ahead. Spiral out, holding my answer. Sven nods when he sees me. The day stretches ahead. The sun is yet to rise. Sven smiles now he sees me. The whole sky lit orange. The sun about to rise. Sven watches the labyrinth. The sky flooding gold. New figures wheel on the hilltop.
Yeah, it's just so lovely and resonant. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Oh, right. Laura, are you still there? It'd be lovely to hear one of your nature poems. I'm so sorry you've had to wait.
Oh, I have loved hearing everyone read. It's just absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And Sarah, thank you. This book is such a labor of love and it's beautiful. And I feel so privileged to have work in it. So thank you. And thanks to everyone here for your beautiful work. So I will read Talismans on page 75. 1. Rose granite laced with a white bolt of presence. I took up that stone as a promise, a lesson primal, a love knot, flecked copper as a red tail glinting high noon, proximate. As if you were folded into the furious sun, folded into my palm. Had I known how long you would delay, beloved, I could not have kept going, could not have lifted my face to the morning or my hands to boil an egg. 2. Sometimes I stop at the ridge of another dusk and skim fingers over each pebble, naming them humility, endurance, hope. Each grit and glimmer different, arriving from a distant ravine. My ransacked bridge is longing and longing alone. I touch a stone bestowed years ago, speak its alias aloud. Stone of the name I must wait to learn. You say that one is patience. 3. Flat, studded with tiny stars, marked by 2 parallel lines of light. This stone waited and waited for me along the shore of Costa Navarino, abided decades and centuries and millennia, rolling in Ionian tides under the hunter's moon, wetted against shark hide and sand, becoming exactly the shape of my palm, though I did not yet exist. But it did, unfailing. The 2 silver lines standing shoulder to shoulder, 2 deer wrapped in moonlight. Thanks.
Absolutely lovely. Thank you so much, Laura. Thank you. Oh dear, I am so sorry that I'm running out of time. I feel terrible. I can manage one more and then I'm going to be obliged to go for now. I did mention Barbara Usher. It'd be lovely to hear your poem if you're still with us and able to read.
I am. Thank you very much.
Oh,
yes, thank
wonderful.
you. Thank you, and much appreciated for everything. Thank you. St. Ebba's calling to redeem the land. Collards fought, an abandoned soldier's clifftop haunt, gifted apology for our brother's murder. We monks and nuns built our wooden church inside the stone. As black and grey, white-rumped wheat ears nest in empty rabbit burrows. We weave mantles of praise, eclipse a spirit of fearfulness. Once a far-sighted lookout for unfriends, King Oswy's gift, we keep vigil now with gulls. Pray Opus Dei, 8 set hours. Full Mars build grass and mud nests on sheer cliff faces. Rock Rose thrives in salt sea air, holds fast, fulfills her nature. Deep gullies, offshore stacks, mark the war of sea and land. Thousands of seabirds scream. We sit at wooden benches, embroider sea campion on linen with moss green silk, white wool from our own flocks. Sing psalms with flocks of twittering linnets, streaky brown meadow pipits. I take refuge. How then can you say to me, flee like a bird to your mountain? Psalm 11, verse 1. Our church stands where swords once picks out gold on silk and linen, Oswald's treasured gift of hangings. My brother, the true king who shared his food, silver plate with churls, patron of gold-flecked textile workers. These women now rank as artisans. Oswald, Requiem aeternam, salve rex gloriae. Outside, the sea candle glints on North Sea water, gestures to home of distant ancestors. We stand in darkling church lit by candles. Bishop Cuthbert stands at the open door and waits, haloed in streaming sunbright. The peace candle reflects, and the space bursts with light. Land once drenched in melting battle icicles is now soaked in prayer. Smell of beeswax from bronzed hanging bowls. A single beam sparkles as the day candle moves, shines on different windows, casts shadow then light. Our own illuminated manuscript, Deo Gratias, a focus for prayer. The space echoes with chanted plainsong in the sacred tongue. Plumes of smoky incense diffuse the light as Cuthbert swings the thurible, appears from the created haze, moves down the nave. Deo Gratias.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Barbara. It's lovely to hear that that poem read, and it seems to draw things together very nicely. I feel terrible for people that I said would read and haven't read. I'm so sorry. I've got your names, Tara and Brendan and others. I will contact you and make it up to you, and we will sort something out, whether that's another reading or it's a smaller recorded discussion, but we'll get your poetry out there. I apologise for my not quite perfect timing, but it's been an absolute pleasure to have a very expanded hour and a half with you. Thank you all so much for reading and for staying anyway, and for listening and being so generous in your comments to each other and in the comments boxes. I'm going to just turn off the recording.